They buried my husband today, but the truth they buried with him is what I came to dig up. That's how it begins. Not with flowers or tears, but with a locked door under my own house. A door that still smells of him. For 40 years, Victor Hale told me that cellar vault was his space, his work, his secrets, and for 40 years, I obeyed, until the day I watched his casket close and realized that silence had been the biggest lie of all. People think death softens a man's memory. It doesn't. Victor looked peaceful in that box, but I could still hear the edge in his voice. Don't ever touch that vault. Clara. Even now, with him gone, I can feel the key missing from the ring he used to keep by the kitchen sink. The empty hook stares back at me like an unfinished sentence. I tell myself that when this day ends, when the black suits leave, when the whispers fade, I'll finally go down there. For the first time in my life, I'll open what he forbade me to open. The chapel smells of lilies and dust. A single shaft of light falls through the stained glass and lands nowhere near me. I sit in the back pew, hands folded, eyes lowered, pretending not to notice how people pretend not to see me. Someone coughs. Someone else murmurs, "Such a tragedy." No one asks how I'm doing. Vanessa Price, my daughter-in-law, walks past in her fitted black dress and polished heels, her voice clipped and bright. "Keep it together, Clara. The reporters might come." She means, "Don't embarrass us." My granddaughter, Lila, glances over her shoulder and whispers, "She looks lost. I suppose I am. Lost inside a crowd that never wanted me in the first place." The minister drones on about peace, about forgiveness. Words that sound heavy and empty in the same breath. When it's time to approach the casket, I don't. Vanessa's hand lands lightly on my arm, light but firm. "It's better if you stay seated." And just like that, 40 years of marriage end with me anchored to a wooden bench while strangers file past the man who ruled every corner of my life. After the burial, the house fills with the noise of mourning. Plates clinking, polite conversation, the smell of coffee trying to hide the smell of grief. But I am not part of it. I am in the kitchen, where they sent me, because it's easier to let the old woman serve than to let her speak. Vanessa steps in, her smile stretched thin. "Could you refill the sugar bowl?" "People are asking," I nod. "That's what I do best." Nod. Lila appears in the doorway with a phone in her hand. "Mom, is Grandma supposed to be here?" "Everyone can see her through the window." Vanessa lowers her voice. "Sweetheart, she likes being useful." They laugh quietly, thinking I can't hear. The truth is, I hear everything. The scraping of chairs, the rustle of coats, the half-hearted condolences. That sound more like gossip. They talk about Victor as if he were a hero. They talk about me as if I were part of the furniture he left behind. I keep stirring sugar into a bowl that doesn't need any more. The spoon rattles steady and soft. My heartbeat keeps time with it. The sound of the spoon becomes the sound of his voice. The vault isn't for women, especially not for a woman like you. He said it the day we moved into this house. He was standing by the cellar door, a ring of keys in his hand, pride in his posture. I remember asking what was down there. He smiled without smiling. "Documents," he said. "Business things. You wouldn't understand." I wanted to believe him, so I did. That was decades ago. But the echo still lives in the walls. Every time the furnace rumbled, I thought of that door. Every time I dusted the shelves above it, I felt a pulse in the wood, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Now he's gone, and that door is still locked. Only this time, it's calling. The guests thin out by evening. The sky turns the color of steel, and the last car rolls down the gravel drive. I'm wiping the counter when Andrew Collins, my son, walks in. His suit jacket is still buttoned, his tie perfect. He looks like Victor used to. Everything crisp, everything controlled. He sets a folder on the table. "Mom, we need to take care of a few things." The folder is thick and silent. "What things?" I ask. "The house," he says. "Dad left instructions. It's time to transfer ownership." He slides the papers toward me. The pen glints like a small blade. "Transfer?" The word feels foreign in my mouth. He doesn't sit. He stands tall, a shadow cutting through the last light from the window. "You've lived here long enough. It's too much for you now. Vanessa and I can manage the upkeep." "Manage," I repeat. He exhales through his nose, impatient. "You'll still have a room for a while, of course. Until we find something comfortable for you." Maybe Ashbourne Retreat. They have great reviews. I look at the signature line. My name already printed in neat letters, waiting to be erased by my own hand. Your father wanted this? I ask. Andrew hesitates. Only a second, but I see it. Yes, he says finally. He mentioned it. He doesn't look at me when he lies. He looks at the refrigerator, at the wall clock, anywhere but at me. I realize he's practiced this conversation. Probably rehearsed it with Vanessa over dinner. The silence stretches. The refrigerator hums. Somewhere upstairs, a door creaks in the draft. You think I can't handle a house? I say quietly. It's not that, Mom. It's about practicality. You're alone now. This place needs what? My voice sharpens before I can stop it. Needs someone else's name on it? He straightens. The polite mask slips just enough for me to see what's underneath. Frustration, maybe guilt, maybe greed. Dad worked for this house, he says. You just lived in it? The words land heavy. For a heartbeat, I can't speak. Then I realize I don't need to. He's already said everything. He pushes the pen closer. Sign it, Mom. I meet his eyes. For the first time in years, he looks uncertain. Maybe he expected tears. Maybe he expected the same obedience I gave his father. Instead, I slide the folder back across the table. No. The word is small, almost polite, but it carries more weight than all his paperwork combined. Andrew's jaw tightens. Don't make this difficult. I'm not, I say. I'm making it real. He stares at me for a long second, then gathers the papers, muttering something about doing this the hard way. When he leaves, the house goes quiet again. But it isn't the same quiet as before. It's sharper, alive. I stand in the kitchen doorway, watching his taillights vanish down the drive. My reflection glints faintly in the window, the outline of a woman who's been fading for too long. On the table, beside the half-empty sugar bowl, lies Victor's old key ring. All the keys are there except one. The hook above the sink is still empty. I trace its outline with my finger and feel something stir inside me. A mixture of anger, grief, and the faintest spark of curiosity. They've all tried to make me small. The husband who kept secrets, the son who wants my house, the daughter-in-law who treats me like a shadow at her own dinner. But small things can still unlock doors. I walk to the cellar door. The handle is cold against my palm. For the first time in decades, I turn it. It doesn't move, not yet. But the sound it makes, that quiet click against resistance, feels like a promise. Tomorrow, I tell myself. Tomorrow I'll find the missing key. The lights in the house go out one by one. In the hallway mirror, I see a faint reflection of Victor's portrait staring down at me, the paint cracked at the corners. Good night, I whisper, though I don't mean it kindly. Upstairs. The clock chimes 9. Downstairs, the vault waits, patient, silent, and still breathing beneath the floorboards. For the first time since the funeral began, I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of what the light will show when I finally open that door. The dead may leave the house, but their silence stays behind. That's what I tell myself the morning after the funeral. The sun slips through the curtains like a polite stranger, unsure if it's welcome. Every sound in the house feels louder now. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the old clock, the sigh of the floorboards as I move across them. For the first time in 40 years, I can hear myself think. And what I hear isn't peace, it's absence. The rooms still smell like Victor's cologne. Sharp, expensive, heavy. I open the windows, but the air won't move. It lingers, stubborn and thick. The scent of a man who wanted even the wind to obey him. I walk through each room slowly, touching nothing, just watching how the light falls differently now that he's gone. The armchair by the fireplace, his. The newspaper folded neatly on the side table, his. Even the silence feels arranged by him. Upstairs, the wardrobe door is slightly open. Inside hang his suits, lined like soldiers in a row. I slide one coat aside and find the empty space where the camel overcoat used to be. That space makes my chest ache. Not from love, no, from something older and quieter. From the memory of who he replaced. I close the door and sit on the edge of the bed. The ticking of the clock fills the space between my breaths. Tick, tock, tick, tock. It's a sound I used to find comforting. Now it's a countdown. Toward what, I don't know yet. Memory slips in without permission. Before Victor Hale, There was Elias Ward. I still remember the smell of the library that day. Old pages, fresh rain, and the faint scent of lilies from the florist across the street. I was 24, shy, working at the front desk while saving for nursing school. Elias walked in carrying an umbrella dripping on the floor and a book about constellations tucked under his arm. His hair was a little too long, his smile a little too warm for a stranger. He apologized for the rain and asked, "Do you know anything about stars?" I told him I only knew how to find the North Star. He smiled, that soft, knowing kind of smile that could steady your heart. "Then you already know enough," he said. From that day, he called me my North Star. He came every Thursday after that, always with lilies, always asking about my week. He never tried to impress me. He just listened. I wasn't used to being listened to. Sometimes I wonder if the universe warns us when something pure is about to be stolen. If it gives us one perfect season before the storm. It wasn't grand. Just a handful of guests, a borrowed piano, and a sky that couldn't decide whether to rain or shine. I wore my sister's lace dress, altered at the waist, and he wore a gray suit that fit just right. When Elias took my hands, he said, "I can't promise we'll never face hard days, but I promise I'll never stop finding you in them." And I believed him. Completely. The photographs show laughter. But what I remember most is the sound of the piano. One of his friends played a soft tune that drifted out into the open air. I thought it sounded like sunlight on water. We didn't have much, just a rented apartment and a hope big enough to fill it. But love made the walls glow. For years afterward, I kept the lilies he gave me pressed between the pages of that constellation book. The petals turned fragile, but the scent lingered. Sometimes I take it out even now, and for a few seconds, I can almost believe I'm still that girl in the lace dress, waiting for her husband to look at her like she was the only thing in the world worth finding. The early years were gentle. Our mornings started with laughter, our nights with soft music. Elias loved the piano. I loved listening. He'd play little tunes while I cooked, making up songs about how the stew smelled or how the rain sounded on the window. We had no children yet, but we didn't mind. We had dreams instead, plans to travel, to build a home by the coast, to grow old together with sand under our feet. He called me Star sometimes, when he was feeling playful, and every time he did, I felt like I belonged somewhere safe. Then one day, the music stopped. It started so slowly that I almost missed it. A pause here, a shorter smile there. The first time he forgot our favorite song, I laughed it off. The second time, I asked if something was wrong. He said he was tired from work, that I worried too much. He began coming home later, his clothes smelling faintly of smoke and something unfamiliar, like the sea, but darker. When I asked about it, he said it was just the new docks he was working on, but soon I realized it wasn't just his clothes that carried another scent. It was his words. They were sharper now, heavier. Not cruel, not yet, but hollow. He stopped bringing lilies. He stopped playing the piano. He stopped calling me Star. I told myself all marriages change. That love doesn't vanish, it just grows quieter. But some nights, when I looked at him reading by the lamp, I felt like I was staring at a stranger wearing my husband's face. One evening, he came home with a new key ring. I asked what it was for. "Business," he said. "Downstairs. Nothing for you to worry about." That was the first time I heard the word vault. He built it himself, in the cellar beneath our small coastal home, saying he needed a safe place for important papers. I didn't ask what kind. I was raised to trust and love makes obedience sound like devotion, but soon the laughter vanished completely. He spent long hours in the cellar, door locked, radio humming behind it. When he came out, his hands were dusted with something that wasn't dust. He'd stand by the window for hours, staring at nothing. And when I tried to stand beside him, he'd shift away. Just slightly, just enough to make me feel the distance. One night, I reached for his hand, and he didn't move away. But his hand was cold, stiff. I told myself it was just the season changing, but inside something else was freezing too. I blink and the memory fades. The clock on the wall drags me back to now. The house is still quiet, still waiting. I realize my whole life has been split into two halves, the man I married and the man who came back one day wearing his smile. I walk down the hallway and stop in front of the cellar door again. My reflection ripples faintly in the brass handle. For years, that door represented obedience. Now it represents truth. The ticking clock behind me sounds like footsteps leading me forward. I sit at the kitchen table and take out an old photograph from a drawer. It's faded at the edges. Elias grinning at the camera, his arm around me, his eyes warm and certain. I trace his face with my finger. "Where did you go?" I whisper. The photo doesn't answer, but the faint draft from under the cellar door seems to shift, like the house itself is exhaling. I glance at the window. Outside, the sea glimmers faintly beneath the moon. For a second, I think I see movement by the cliffs. A figure, maybe, or a trick of the light. But when I blink, it's gone. Still, I can't shake the feeling that the past hasn't finished speaking. It's only waiting for me to listen. Every house has a heartbeat. Ours learned to flinch, even after all these years. The sound of a door slamming still makes the walls tremble. The house was built strong. Oak beams. Stone foundation. But sound travels differently here. It rolls through the rooms like thunder trapped under the floor, settling in corners, hiding in the dust. It was late autumn when the air first started tasting of bitterness. The wind outside carried the smell of salt and rust from the sea, and inside the faint sting of whiskey clung to Victor's coat. He didn't shout that night. Shouting would have been easier to ignore. Instead, he spoke in short, sharp bursts, words cutting off before they reached sense. A bottle slipped from his hand, hit the table, and shattered. Amber liquid streamed across the tiles, catching the light from the stove like thin fire. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the drip of liquid sliding from glass to floor. Steady, deliberate, almost like the ticking of a clock. When he finally left the room, the echo stayed behind. I crouched to wipe the spill, my reflection bending in every shard. Dozens of little versions of myself staring back. Each looked tired. Each looked older than the day before. I gathered the pieces in a dish towel and carried them outside to the trash. Cold night air brushed my face, and I realized my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the effort of holding everything together. The next morning, sunlight poured across the kitchen in long, merciless stripes. I was still sweeping when Andrew padded down the stairs, hair messy, tie half knotted for school. He paused in the doorway, taking in the sight of the damp towel and the empty space on the counter where the bottle used to stand. "What happened?" he asked, but his voice held more curiosity than concern. "Nothing worth talking about," I said. He nodded. "The way children do when they've already decided what they believe." "Dad said you worry too much," he murmured, pulling out a chair. Then, as if the thought amused him, he added, "You probably made him upset again. It wasn't cruelty. It was inheritance." He had learned early that silence kept peace. When he left for school, humming under his breath, I realized the lesson had passed cleanly from father to son. I finished cleaning alone. The clock above the sink ticked through every second of that long morning. For the first time, I wondered how many years could fit into the space between one tick and the next. Time moves differently now, but patterns remain. Andrew is grown, successful and certain. When he visits, he stands in the same doorway, speaking with the same clipped patience his father used. He has mastered the art of correction disguised as care. "Mom, you should let us handle things. You forget details. You need structure." Each sentence sounds reasonable until you hear the rhythm underneath. Authority, not love. He scrolls through his phone while lecturing me about safety. Bills, responsibility. I nod the way I used to. But my thoughts drift to the sound of that long-ago bottle hitting the floor. The same vibration hums through the room even now. Faint but familiar. When he finally leaves, the silence that follows isn't empty. It's electric. It hums through the furniture, through my bones. For the first time, I don't rush to fill it. I sit by the window, notebook in my lap, pen unmoving. Outside, gulls circle above the cliffs, their cries thin against the wind. I think of all the words I never said, how obedience had become a second language. I once believed that love meant staying quiet so others could feel comfortable, but silence is a slow kind of erosion. It wears you down until even your own thoughts start whispering. The only thing locked tighter than that vault was my own voice. I write the sentence on a blank page and stare at it until the ink sinks deep into the paper. There it is. The truth I've been circling for decades. The vault downstairs might hold Victor's secrets, but the real secret is that I let mine live behind my teeth. I close the notebook gently. The decision forming inside me doesn't feel wild or reckless. It feels inevitable, like tide meeting shore. That night, the air is clear enough to taste the ocean. Moonlight spills down the hallway, silvering the photographs on the wall. In every frame, Victor's face looks slightly different, angles sharper, smile thinner. Maybe the photographs changed with time. Maybe I'm finally seeing them clearly. I move toward the cellar door, bare feet silent on the wooden floorboards. The handle catches the light, cool beneath my fingers. For years I avoided even brushing against it, afraid the sound might wake an argument that never really slept. Now, standing in the hush of midnight, I feel something shift inside me. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sighs and steps forward anyway. I press my palm flat against the door. It doesn't yield, but I can sense the hollow space behind it, the breath of the house waiting to be released. A faint draft curls around my wrist, bringing the scent of earth and metal. I'll find the key, I whisper. The words fall softly, but they ripple outward like a stone dropped in water. For the first time in years, the echo that comes back sounds like agreement. Sleep doesn't come, so I step onto the porch. Ashbourne streets lie quiet under the moon, rows of lamplight bending toward the sea. The wind carries the distant clang of a buoy and the faint bark of a dog. Somewhere a door slams, and the echo fades into the hills. I wrap my shawl tighter and breathe. Every inhale tastes of salt. Every exhale feels like letting go of something heavy. In the reflection of the window, I hardly recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes are tired. Yes, but alert, awake. When I return inside, the air feels different. Even the floorboards seem to settle, as if acknowledging a change of command. I pour a cup of tea and sit at the kitchen table, watching the steam rise. For 40 years, my life has been shaped by other people's decisions, by their tempers, their ambitions, their explanations of what I could or could not understand. But tonight, the house feels like it belongs to me again, if only in spirit. The moonlight reaches through the window and lands on the empty hook where a key once hung. That small patch of brightness looks almost like a path. I smile to myself, a slow, unfamiliar curve of the lips. Tomorrow, I'll start searching drawers, coats, pockets long forgotten. If the key still exists, it will find its way back to my hand, and if it doesn't, I'll find another way in. The decision is made, not loudly, not dramatically, just completely. I stand once more in the hallway. The clock strikes midnight, each chime echoing through the house like footsteps approaching. I whisper a simple goodnight to the silence, not to Victor, not to the past, but to the version of myself that kept waiting for permission. When the last chime fades, the house exhales. For the first time in decades, I feel it breathe with me. Tomorrow begins the search. Curiosity isn't a sin. It's the beginning of freedom. For days, the house has been whispering to me, not in words, but in small movements, a flicker of light on the cellar door, a creak in the floorboards when no one walks there. It feels like the walls are trying to guide me towards something I've ignored for too long. Ever since the funeral, I've carried a strange kind of calm. Not peace, no, peace is too generous a word, this is focus. A stillness that hides motion beneath it. I wake each morning with a single thought. Find what he kept from me. It happens on a gray afternoon. When the clouds hang low over Ashbourne and the smell of rain crawls through the open window, Vanessa's voice carries from the living room. Smooth, confident, sharp around the edges. She's on the phone again. Always on the phone. Once she's in the home. We'll redo the cellar, she says, her tone casual, but her words slicing through the quiet like glass. The rest of her sentence fades behind the rhythm of my heartbeat. Redo the cellar. She's standing near the window, facing the garden, one hand resting on her hip. Her reflection glimmers faintly in the glass, and I catch the faintest smile as she continues. Yes, the foundation's old. We might as well renovate it once it's cleared. There could be valuables, you know? Victor wasn't exactly poor. I stop breathing. Every syllable sharpens the shape of her intentions. I stay still, hidden in the hallway's shadow. My palms are damp, but not from fear. From certainty. They know something. Or at least they think they do. The vault isn't just a secret. It's leverage. When she hangs up, Vanessa adjusts her coat and checks her reflection again, murmuring, "Some people just don't know when to let go." For the first time in my life, I agree with her. I won't let go. Not until I know what's down there. That night, thunder growls in the distance. The air feels charged, alive with static and secrets. I start in the study, drawers sliding open, the smell of old paper and ink filling the room. One by one, I open every cabinet, every box, every envelope stamped with Victor's initials. Nothing. The rain begins. Soft at first, tapping on the windows like fingers. The sound keeps me company, steady and patient as I move from room to room. In the upstairs bedroom, I find a box of cufflinks, a broken watch, and a faded letter addressed to Mr. Hale. The handwriting isn't mine. I trace it with my finger, but set it aside. Not yet, not this mystery. The real one waits downstairs. Next, I search the wardrobe. Each coat feels heavier than it should, filled with years of disuse and dust. Inside one pocket, I find an old movie ticket from 1983. Inside another, a receipt for something long forgotten. My breath catches when I see the camel overcoat. The fabric is stiff from age, but the smell is unmistakable. That blend of cedar and the faint echo of his cologne. I pull it down carefully. Something about it feels wrong. Too light, as if it's missing a piece of itself. I run my fingers along the inner seam. The stitching near the hem feels uneven, thicker than the rest. Lightning flashes outside, illuminating the thread for a single heartbeat, pale against the tan wool. My pulse quickens. There it is. I fetch a small pair of sewing scissors from the drawer and sit by the lamp. The rain has grown louder now, drumming against the windows in rhythm with my heart. Carefully, I snip the first few stitches. The thread loosens, curling like tiny ghosts falling to the floor. The lining peels back, revealing a pocket I never knew existed. Inside rests a small rusted key. Its metal is dull, edges worn smooth by time and touch. For a moment, the world goes still. Even the rain pauses between drops. I lift the key from its hiding place and hold it under the lamp's glow. Its shadow stretches across my palm like an old scar. "So this is what you were protecting," I whisper. It's heavier than it looks, not in weight, but in meaning. He carried this secret for decades, and I carried the silence that kept it safe. Now both belong to me. I walk to the mirror on the wall and hold up the key beside my face. Two reflections stare back. The woman I've become, and the one who believed she'd never find her way out. They both look surprised. The storm outside breaks open, thunder cracking above the roof. Somewhere in that sound, I hear the faintest whisper of victory, small, but unmistakable. The house feels different now, lighter somehow. Even the air seems to hum with awareness, as if it knows change is coming. I place the key on the table beside a lit lamp. Its golden circle flickers on the wall like the start of a sunrise. My hands tremble. Not from fear, but from realization. For years, I lived according to Victor's rules. Don't question, don't open, don't wander. But now, his boundaries feel like invitations. Every don't is a doorway waiting to be stepped through. I take a breath and whisper to the empty kitchen. Tomorrow I end the silence. The words echo softly, bouncing off the cupboards, the floor, the walls that have heard everything but truth. They sound almost like a promise. I turn off the lamp, leaving only the candle's flame flickering beside the key. Its light dances across the table, reflecting in my teacup, a tiny star trapped in porcelain. Somewhere deep inside, a voice older than my fear murmurs, "At last." Midnight arrives wrapped in thunder. The candle burns low, the shadows stretch long, and the key glints faintly in the dim light. I take it in my hand. It's cool, almost cold, as if it's been waiting for this moment longer than I have. Every step toward the cellar door sounds louder than it should. The floorboards groan under my weight. The wind sighs through the window panes. Somewhere in the distance, the waves crash against the cliffs, the same rhythm they had when Elias and I first walked there decades ago. I pause at the cellar door. The handle looks ordinary. But in this light, it seems alive, breathing, expectant. I fit the key into the lock, and for the first time, it turns. A soft click echoes through the hallway. The door releases a breath of cool air, smelling faintly of dust, wood, and something metallic beneath. I raise the candle, its flame trembling. The stairs leading downward are narrow and uneven, each one worn from age. I step carefully, one foot, then the other, the candlelight bouncing across the walls. The deeper I go, the quieter the world becomes. The thunder fades, the house above dissolves into silence, and it's just me and the sound of my heartbeat. Halfway down, I stop to steady myself. There's a chill here that doesn't belong to the weather, a stillness so dense it feels alive. And yet, I'm not afraid. Not anymore. Each step forward feels like reclaiming something I lost. A thought. A memory, a voice. By the time I reach the bottom, the fear that once ruled my life has turned into focus. The vault door stands before me. Thick, old, silent. The same silence I lived inside for 40 years. I trace my fingers along its edge and rest the key in the lock. For a moment, I hesitate, the flame flickering near my face. What if what waits behind this door changes everything? Then again, what if it already has? I turn the key. The lock yields with a soft metallic sigh. Behind the sound of metal shifting, there's something else. Faint, almost imperceptible. It might be air moving, or it might be the past. Finally exhaling, I take one step closer, candle in hand, the light trembling across the threshold. And for the first time since Victor's death, I smile. Not because I'm free yet, but because I finally understand that freedom begins with curiosity. Tomorrow will bring answers. Tonight, I have the key. Some doors don't open to free you. They open to show you what kept you captive. The key turns with a soft metallic sigh. The sound isn't loud, but it cuts through the house like thunder. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. The candle flickers. The air stills, even the sea outside seems to pause. Then, the lock gives way. The door creaks open, slow and deliberate, releasing a wave of cold air that smells of iron, earth, and dust. The candle flame bends forward as if drawn inside. I step through, my hand grazing the rough stone wall. The cellar feels smaller than I imagined. Narrow, suffocating, heavy with years of neglect. Cobwebs hang from the ceiling like faded curtains. Dust dances in the candlelight, swirling like ash. And there, at the far end resting on a wooden table, is a black leather folder. It's the only thing untouched by time. The folder sits perfectly centered, as if someone placed it there carefully and never returned. The edges are smooth, the surface faintly glinting under the candle's glow. My heartbeat grows loud enough to fill the room. I whisper, "You left me a secret instead of a goodbye." The candle trembles in my hand. The first thing I see when I open the folder is a photograph. 2 men standing side by side, both smiling in that polite, careful way people do for the camera. Same jawline, same eyes, same half smile, 2 faces, identical, Elias Ward and Victor Hale. My breath catches. I turn over another photograph, then another. One is dated 1979, 2 men in uniform, arms around each other. Another shows them outside a shipyard. On the back of one photo, written in a familiar hand, "To my brother, may we always protect what we love." Brother. The word rings in my ears. The air grows thin, the man I loved. The man I married. The man who ruled my life. They weren't just connected, they were bound by blood. Beneath the photos lies a small envelope. Inside are 2 passports, one marked Elias Ward, the other Victor Hale. The birth dates are the same. The faces are the same, but the entry stamps, those are different. Elias's passport ends in 1983, the year he disappeared. Victor's begins that same summer, under a different name, different address. I run my thumb along the edges, the paper rough beneath my fingers. My heart starts to race, each beat echoing louder against the walls, all at once. I remember the way Victor sometimes hesitated before answering questions about our early days, how he'd pause before recalling details that should have been effortless, how he never once mentioned the family he'd claimed to have, lost, how he'd flinch whenever I said Elias's name out loud in a dream, I whisper to the darkness. They weren't one man at all, were they? The candlelight shivers as if it heard me. The last item in the folder is a sealed envelope, yellowed, edges fragile, addressed in neat handwriting I know too well. To my North Star. The world narrows to that single line. I unfold the letter with trembling hands. The ink has faded, but the words are clear enough to read. My dearest Clara, if this letter reaches you, it means the man who stands in my place has finally fallen silent. His name is Victor, my brother. My twin. He took my name, my home, my life, and you, the only light I ever had. He drugged me on the night of our wedding, sent me away on a cargo ship bound for the coast of Belize, and left me there to die under another name, but I lived. Clara, I lived with the memory of your voice. I carved it into my bones so I wouldn't forget who I was. He told you lies. He told the world I had changed. But it was him, and it was always him. If you're reading this, know that you were never to blame. You were never foolish for loving me. You were my compass, my North Star. I followed your memory through every dark night. I don't know if I'll ever see you again, but if the world is kind, perhaps one day it will bring my truth home to you. My hands shake. My throat tightens. Tears fall freely, splattering across the ink, smudging the word love until it bleeds into the paper. 40 years, I whisper, my voice breaking. 40 years I lived with a stranger. The candle flickers out. Darkness fills the room. The only sound is my breath, uneven, trembling, too loud in the silence. My knees buckle. I sink to the cold floor, the letter clutched against my chest. Images crash through my mind. The first smile. The first dance. The first night he forbade me from opening the vault. Every moment rearranges itself into something new. Something wrong. The life I built, the memories I guarded, all shifting like sand beneath my feet. I whisper to the dark, Elias, I would have waited. I would have found you, but the cellar doesn't answer. When I finally light another candle, my eyes catch on the folder's inner lining. It's slightly torn at one corner. Something glints beneath the leather. Carefully, I pull it free. A small flash drive, metal and worn. No label. My reflection stares back from its surface. It looks nothing like the woman who once believed in quiet lives and safe secrets. Curiosity overcomes grief. I climb the stairs, one trembling step at a time, candle in one hand, truth in the other. The air feels different up here, not lighter, just real. Like the house itself has stopped pretending. At the desk, I open the old laptop Andrew once mocked me for keeping. It whirs, groans, then flickers to life. I plug in the drive. The screen flashes once, twice. A file appears. NorthStarFinal.mp4. I click it. Static first. Then an image forms. A dimly lit room, concrete walls, a man sitting in a chair. His hair is gray now, his face thinner. But the eyes are still Elias. He looks straight into the camera. His hands are clasped in front of him, trembling. Clara, he says, voice raspy but steady. If you're watching this, it means the world finally let my story find you. I freeze. My breath catches somewhere between a sob and disbelief. He continues, I don't know how much time I have left. They made sure I stayed invisible. Belize, a worksite. I kept my head down, waited for a chance. One of the men here smuggled this recording out. Said he could send it to a contact in Maine. Maybe one day it would reach the right person. He swallows hard. I held on because of you. I pictured you reading under that old lamp, humming to yourself. That memory kept me alive. He pauses, his eyes glistening. Victor visited once. I thought it was to set me free. But he came to show me what he'd taken. He showed me photographs, you, the house, a boy. He said the child called him father. He said, you forgot me. I cover my mouth. My heart pounds. Andrew. He meant Andrew. Elias continues. When I realized my own blood was being raised to believe a lie, I almost gave up. But then I remembered, the truth doesn't die just because someone buries it. It waits. He leans forward, his face close to the lens. Find the vault, Clara. Don't be afraid. Everything you need to clear my name is inside. My documents, his letters, proof of what he did. Don't let them tell our story for us. He sits back, exhausted. The sound of waves fills the background. Clara, he whispers, you are my compass. If you ever find this, follow it home. The screen fades to black. I sit frozen, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. Tears trace slow paths down my cheeks, but beneath them a new feeling blooms. Not grief, not even anger. Clarity. For decades, I thought silence was survival. Now I see it for what it was, control. Every word I swallowed, every rule I obeyed, every question I buried, all of it kept the lie alive. But now, the truth breathes again, and I won't let it die in this house. The candle burns low beside me. Its flame flickers once, then steadies as if standing guard. I close the laptop gently and whisper to the quiet. You waited for me, Elias. Now it's my turn. The house no longer feels haunted. It feels awake. The moment truth enters a room, even liars forget how to breathe. The morning after I watched Elias's video, the house feels smaller, every wall leaning closer, listening. I don't sleep. I sit in the kitchen with the flash drive on the table. The candle burned down to a stub. Dawn creeps through the window, pale and cold. Outside, gulls scream over the cliffs, and for once, their cries don't sound lonely. They sound like warning bells. The front door explodes inward. Wind, footsteps, the sound of anger too proud to hide itself. Andrew storms in. His face flushed, his tie crooked, he doesn't knock. Doesn't speak at first. He just scans the room until his eyes land on the flash drive. What is this? He snaps, snatching it from the table. Evidence, I answer. He laughs, sharp and nervous. You've been digging where you shouldn't, Mom. Before I can stand. He slams the drive onto the floor and crushes it under his heel. A small pop. A crack and then only silence. For a second, all I can see is the dust swirling around his shoe. Then I realize he's shaking. Not with guilt, but with fear. He starts pacing, voice rising and falling like a man talking to ghosts. Fine. You want the truth? Here's the truth. Dad told me everything, before he died, before you ruined everything. He turns, eyes blazing. You were never supposed to know, Clara. He said you'd never understand. My name in his mouth sounds like an accusation. He keeps talking. Faster now, words spilling out. He said Elias was weak, that he didn't deserve you. He said he'd done you a favor. And yes, he hesitates, breath catching. Yes, the house fire. It was his idea. I helped plan it, to get the insurance, to keep everything in the family. My stomach twists, but my voice stays even. And me? He stares at the wall behind me. Collateral. You were supposed to be away that night. He said you'd already left. His words collapse into the quiet like stones dropped into water. Each one sinks, leaving only ripples. I stand slowly, pushing the chair back. The legs scrape the floor. A small, steady sound in a room gone still. Andrew's face hardens. Don't look at me like that, he says. You don't know what it was like growing up with him. I do, I answer. Better than you ever will. He takes a step forward, but I don't move. I lift my chin just slightly, enough to meet his eyes. You think you destroyed the truth? I nod toward the broken flash drive. Even old women know how to make copies. The words land between us like thunder. His expression cracks, just a flicker, but it's enough. All the certainty drains from his face, leaving only the boy he used to be, scared, ashamed, small. He backs toward the door. You shouldn't have opened that vault. No, I say quietly. You shouldn't have locked it. He leaves without another word, and when the door slams behind him, the whole house shakes, but I don't. The echo fades, leaving stillness so complete I can hear the rain starting outside. I sit again, hands folded on the table, and let the sound fill the space he left behind. Every storm has an aftertaste, and this one tastes like relief. The wind howls through the chimney. I imagine the house exhaling, decades of secrets finally finding air. For a long time, I don't move, then I stand, straighten the tablecloth, and sweep the fragments of the broken flash drive into my palm. Small, twisted, useless, and yet proof that the lie is ending. That evening, I pick up the phone and call Margaret Lane. Her voice, warm and steady, answers on the second ring. Clara? It's been years. I need a favor, I say. End your silence until I ask otherwise. There's a pause, then a sigh that sounds almost like relief. I always wondered when you'd call. I tell her everything. The vault, the letter, the video, the confession. I leave out the trembling, the tears. She'll know those parts without hearing them. When I finish, she says simply, we'll do this the quiet way. Clara, the smart way. Her confidence settles around me like a blanket. By the time I hang up, I'm no longer trembling. The next weeks pass in fragments. Phone calls, letters, sealed envelopes. Margaret's contacts reach out to old colleagues. Names surface. Papers move. I watch it all unfold from the kitchen window. The sea shifting through every shade of gray. An officer from Interpol visits once. Polite but cautious. He carries a briefcase and speaks in terms like cross-referencing and jurisdiction. I brew him tea and hand him the photocopies I made. The photographs, the passports, the letter to my North Star. He leaves saying, "It may take time, Mrs. Winslow, but we'll find the truth." I almost smile. The truth already found me, I think. You're just chasing its footprints. Nights stretch long, filled with paper rustle and pen scratches. Each sound feels like progress. Justice written one page at a time. Weeks later, near dawn, the phone rings. I answer half asleep. Heart already racing, a man's voice. Distant and formal. "Mrs. Winslow, this is Officer Duarte with Interpol. We have confirmation. We found him." For a second, I can't speak. The word found echoes in my chest like a second heartbeat. "Elias?" I whisper, "Yes, ma'am, alive, weak but stable. We're arranging his transport to a hospital in Belize City." My knees buckle. I sit hard on the edge of the bed, one hand gripping the blanket, the other pressed to my mouth. Tears blur the world, but they taste different this time, sharp with relief. "Thank you," I manage. He says something about documents. Identification, travel, but I barely hear. The only word that matters is alive. When I hang up, the morning light is just beginning to spill across the floor. For the first time in 40 years, it feels warm. Months later, the courthouse in Ashbourne buzzes like a hive. Reporters gather outside, microphones flashing like lightning. Inside, the air smells of coffee, dust, and anticipation. Andrew sits at the defense table, eyes fixed forward. He looks smaller in a suit than he ever did in my kitchen. Margaret sits beside me, her hand steady on mine. The judge calls for silence. They play the recovered footage of Elias, the letters, the bank records. The truth unspools in front of everyone, patient, unstoppable. When it's my turn to speak, I stand, my voice surprises me, steady, clear, unshaking. "I'm not here for revenge," I tell the court. "I'm here because I did not forget." Every camera flashes at once, but the sound fades. All I hear is my own heartbeat, slow and calm, like waves returning to shore. Andrew lowers his eyes. The judge's gavel falls. Outside, people murmur, then cheer softly, not for spectacle, but for closure. Margaret squeezes my hand. "It's done," she whispers. I step into the sunlight, and for the first time in half a century, I feel tall. Some stories don't end where the pain stops. They end where forgiveness finally begins. The trial ended months ago, yet the sound of the gavel still echoes in my chest. Ashbourne's air tastes cleaner these days. I think it's because the house finally learned how to breathe again. The sea outside my window glitters with early summer light. I watch it move and realize the tide, and I have something in common. We both returned after years of retreat. Tomorrow, Elias comes home. Boston International Airport hums like a living thing. Announcements drone overhead, luggage wheels clatter across tile, and faces blur into motion. I stand at the arrivals gate holding a small bouquet of white camellias. The same flowers he once said reminded him of courage disguised as gentleness. My hands tremble slightly, and the petals shake with them. Every minute stretches thin, like the final note of a song that refuses to end. A woman nearby asks if I need help. I smile. "No, I'm just waiting for someone I lost a long time ago." When the sliding glass doors open, travelers spill out in waves, families rushing forward, couples reuniting, strangers passing by. Then I see him, Elias Ward, thinner, yes, paler, his gait cautious, guided by a cane. But the eyes, the same steady light I remembered, softened by time but not dimmed. The world around us blurs. He stops when he sees the flowers. Our eyes lock, and for a moment everything inside me goes quiet. He smiles, a small, trembling curve of the lips. Because of you, he whispers. His voice hoarse but sure. I kept breathing. I pressed the camellias to his chest. And because of you, I answer, I never stopped looking. We don't rush the embrace. We simply fall into it. Two pieces of a story finally finding their rightful page. Somewhere, a piano piece plays through an airport speaker. Soft, slow, perfectly out of tune. I decide it's ours. The car waiting outside smells faintly of salt and new leather. Elias leans on his cane, watching the traffic glide past the window, wonder flickering across his face like he's seeing color again after decades of gray. I thought I'd forgotten what fresh air felt like, he says quietly. You didn't forget, I reply. You were just waiting for the right breath. He chuckles softly. You always did find poetry where I found pain. I reach for his hand, and he lets me. The years between us shrink, leaving only the distance we can walk together. The road to Ashbourne winds along the coast. The sky melts from gold to rose to deep violet as the sun lowers into the sea. Elias leans back, eyes closed as the wind tousles his silver hair. Every few miles, he asks what has changed. Everything, I say, and nothing that matters. When the car finally turns onto the gravel drive, the house stands waiting, quiet, still, unfamiliar in its peace. The shutters gleam with fresh paint. The garden has grown wild but beautiful, full of green defiance. Elias steps out slowly, taking in the sight. He touches the porch railing as though it might vanish. This is where it happened, he murmurs. And yet, it feels different. It is, I tell him. It's ours again. He nods once, eyes shining, and we walk inside together. The air is warm, alive. The cellar door, once a symbol of fear, sits open now, a passage, not a prison. For the first time in 40 years, the house welcomes us both. Morning comes soft and golden. I find Elias on the back porch, sleeves rolled up, a small spade in his hand. He's chosen a corner near the fence where sunlight lingers longest. What are you doing? I ask, already smiling. Planting something new, he answers, holding up a small bundle of white camellias. The ones from the bouquet didn't belong in a vase. They belong in earth. Together we kneel, pressing roots into soil still damp with dew. His hands shake a little, so I steady them with mine. We plant each flower carefully, layer by layer, as though we're rebuilding time itself. When the last one is in, we sit back on our heels and watch the petals catch the light. They'll bloom every spring, I say. And every spring, he replies, we'll remember that truth can grow back, even after fire. The breeze carries the scent of salt and blossoms. Somewhere beyond the fence, children laugh, a sound I once thought I'd never hear again without breaking. Now it makes me smile. That night, the house glows with lamplight. The old piano in the living room has been tuned for the first time in decades. Elias sits before it, fingers hovering uncertainly above the keys. Play something, I whisper. He begins softly, a hesitant melody that drifts through the hallways like the memory of sunlight. It's imperfect, beautiful in its fragility. I set the table for two. Simple soup, warm bread, the same meal we shared the week we married. When I sit beside him, he stops playing long enough to take my hand. This time, he says, voice quiet but firm, we live for us. The words land deep. No promises of forever, no apologies for the years lost, just the simple truth that what's left is enough. We eat, we laugh, we let the silence between sentences feel like music. Later, I find him standing by the window, watching the moon rise over the sea. It's strange, he murmurs. I thought I'd forgotten how to be alive. You didn't forget, I tell him again. You just waited until it was safe. He smiles, and the reflection of the moon pools in his eyes. The next morning, I wake before dawn. The house is quiet, peaceful, filled with the scent of fresh earth from the garden. Elias still sleeps, one hand resting on the edge of the bed, as if afraid I might disappear if he lets go. I move to the window and look out at the new row of camellias glistening with dew. Each blossom seems to hold a small sun at its center. The world feels lighter now, not because the pain vanished, but because it finally has room to breathe beside joy. I understand something I didn't before. This story was never about revenge. It was about remembrance. I whisper into the stillness, letting the words form like a prayer. This wasn't about revenge. It was about remembering. Wisdom doesn't shout. It remembers. Outside, the wind stirs. Gentle and sure, the camellias sway in perfect rhythm, their white petals catching the light. I imagine the world watching them, understanding that peace doesn't always arrive loudly. It often walks in quietly, barefoot, through the back door of forgiveness. The camera of the heart pulls back, an old house by the sea, its windows glowing, two figures sitting by a piano, a garden blooming with white. And over it all, the sound of a slow piano refrain. Not mourning, not nostalgia, just the simple music of a life finally whole. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with understanding. Clara's journey reminds us that silence can bury truth, but it can never kill it. No matter how many years pass, light always finds its way back through the cracks. She didn't win through anger. She won through patience, courage, and the quiet strength to face what others ran from. And maybe that's what real justice looks like. Not loud, not cruel, but steady. A woman reclaiming her name, her peace, and her truth. If this story touched you, if you believe that truth and love still matter, then take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories that remind you, even after everything, you can begin again. Grandma True Stories. Because some truths deserve to be remembered.